As our operations team met over the course of 6 months back in the summer and fall of 2015, we took a couple of sessions to focus on our guest services cycle. In What's the Secret, John DeJulius encourages organizations to look at every guest touch point. In other words, every opportunity organizations have to connect and serve their customers. We all made our own cycle and presented them to the team. Then we spent the better part of 4 hours discussing and refining our cycle. In the end, we decided we have 8 stages in our guest services cycle. It isn't rocket science or very complicated. When you see it, you probably say, duh, but that doesn't diminish its importance to delivering excellent guest services. The first stage is called Introduction to Family House. Ironically, we have the least ability to influence this stage, but it can cause some of the greatest problems for us. We work hard to ensure that we have a healthy and robust hospital outreach program. We work hard to make sure that our website is current and useful. Our housing team is well equipped to serve guests and answer questions as they think about staying with us. However, there are thousands of staff members across the local health systems. The turnover is significant. It is extremely difficult to keep everyone who might refer to us up to speed on everything our guests need to know. We frequently get asked if our services are free. Unfortunately, they're not free. Folks confuse us with Ronald McDonald House, and folks give the wrong information. In any case, we must be prepared to inform potential guests of our services, no matter who made the referral. The second stage is booking. Once a potential guest decides that they need a place to stay and are considering Family House, they make contact with us. This might be an internet inquiry, an online reservation, or a phone call to book a room. Our housing staff are the first voice guests normally hear, and they set the tone for our guests' entire experience. The next stage is check-in. This begins when the guest arrives and needs to navigate parking, find the front office, get a tour of the house, and finally get to their room. The next stage is the stay stage. This can be one night or 2 years, depending upon what the guest and patient is facing. This is a stage where we have the greatest ability to engage and serve our guests. But at some point, guests will be ready to leave, and we broke this part out into 2 stages. The first we have called pre-departure. This may be the final time we actually get to communicate with the guest. We let them know the evening before that they're scheduled to check out and that we are anticipating their departure the next morning, and provide them information to help them take care of things like keys, outstanding balances, trash, etc. This step is very important as folks sometimes forget to tell us that they need to stay longer. The more notice we have, the better we can meet their need. So we also give them our checkout survey to get feedback on how well we did serving them. We share these results with our management team, our board, and our staff. Eventually, they do leave. We call this the departure stage. This is when the guest loads up their stuff and heads home, hopefully by 11 a.m. The next stage is called the follow-up stage. Based on our responses to our checkout survey, guests sometimes ask for follow-up with them. They are added to our mailing list for our next newsletter. And this stage, it continues to be a work in progress. Then the cycle starts all over. If a guest needs to come back, they book a room with housing and so on. However, there is one additional stage that is vitally important. And if it doesn't go well, it can wreck the next guest's experience. The final stage is the room setup stage. This is where our housekeeping team cleans the room and prepares it for the next guest. It is where our volunteers handle linen setup and do one final check to ensure everything is working properly and ready. It is when our maintenance team can address things like heating and air conditioning, TV issues, plumbing, etc. That's our cycle. Once organizations have the stages in their customer service cycle, John encourages organizations to look at what can go wrong in each stage of the cycle. Nothing can go wrong, right? Things can and do go wrong. They're called defects. For each stage, John says not only determine what can go wrong, but think about what you actually want to happen. What are the operational and experiential standards that should be in place in each stage? What are the opportunities to go above and beyond? Know what know what these are and try to exceed, I guess, expectation whenever possible. Please take a few seconds to locate your packet for today's session. Find the section called Guest Services Cycle. It should look like something like what's on your screen. If you look at the very bottom of the page, you'll see the words Intro to Family House. Please be sure to pause the video if you haven't gotten there yet. As you turn the pages, you will see this document gives you a sense of the defects, operational standards, experiential standards, and above and beyond opportunities for each specific stage. For example, in your packet, if you turn to the booking stage, at the top left, misinformation is a huge defect. Misinformation regarding room types. We have 2 twin beds. Most hotels have 2 queen beds. Our occupancy. Are we always full or do we have availability? Shuttle availability. Isn't it on demand 24/7? Perhaps not. If you look at our operational standards for the same booking stage, how do we handle patients without caregivers? Well, we have a patient alone policy that guides what we can and will do. There are some ideas under above and beyond that still need to be developed, but they do provide you with some ideas for ways to exceed our guest expectations. Go ahead and turn to the next page. Check-in. A huge defect would be the room not ready. This could happen for many reasons. We need and do have processes in place to prevent this, but there are still things that can happen. We forget to put the room on the housekeeping board for cleaning. Housekeeper might call, if we have a housekeeper call off and we have high turnover volume in rooms, it's hard to clean those rooms. If a volunteer calls off and the room doesn't have the proper linen set up, maybe there's a late checkout that doesn't get communicated to the housekeeper. Maybe there's a heating or cooling issue that doesn't get to maintenance team, etc. Turn to the next page. This is stay. With the various and confusing times shuttle options, we've got the Family House Guest Shuttle, we've got Ubers, we got the VA Shuttle. We need to ensure that every guest is getting on the right shuttle at the right time. We need to cover this during check-in, but it becomes a defect during their stay. Page 5, pre-departure. Guests can become upset or frustrated when they get a checkout notice. Sometimes they just forget. They have a lot on their mind, and sometimes they think they told us. In any case, when extensions aren't put into WebRose Pro early enough, guests can be reassigned to. Sorry, let me re-say that. When extensions aren't put into WebRose Pro early enough, guest rooms can be reassigned to an incoming guest, creating a real conflict for both guests, and more importantly, becoming an issue for our team to resolve. Nothing can go wrong at departure, right? If you look at the next page, guests want to check out late. Maybe they want to check out at 2 o'clock instead of 11, and they don't want to pay. No conflict there, right? Sometimes guests leave luggage or property behind. We need a plan. What do we do about that? Page 7 is the follow-up stage. If we don't have good information on WebRose Pro, we could end up sending a deceased guest a donation solicitation letter. Or if we have the wrong address, we won't be able to communicate with them at all. Not things that are good. Okay, you get the idea, right? After this session, be sure to look over this packet so you can get a sense of the rest of the defects and standards of all the stages in our guest services cycle.